While the 6.6 liter LB7 Duramax Diesel is a very reliable and long-lasting engine, it does have its demons. Today we're going to be talking about the common issues with the LB7 Duramax, and we'll be working our way up from the least common to the guaranteed. If you're excited for this video, hit that like button and also hit that big red button below so that you're tuned in for all of my future uploads. As far as diesel trucks are concerned, if you're into performance modifications, the LB7 is not your truck. While arguably a good motor, the LB7 and attached Allison 1000 transmission and drivetrain require a lot of work to be reliable with performance modifications. As more power is added to this truck, a lot of new components are needed. The most important areas to upgrade are the engine cooling system. Most importantly, a larger radiator. Since head gaskets tend to blow on these trucks under load, you'll need to replace those too with some stronger head studs, since the factory ones don't support more power. Also, the ultra-reliable Allison transmission becomes your ultra-nightmare if you add more than an additional 60 horsepower, so plan on putting work into that as well, along with the front end. The independent front suspension on the Duramax makes for a very nice ride, but it's just not meant for a heavy hauler. If you're going to be modifying your Duramax, especially with a lift kit or oversized tires, you'll need to switch out the stock steering and suspension components. If you don't, you'll be dealing with dangerous control arm failures and be replacing ball joints often. Even stock and towing, you can have issues with the front suspension and steering components. For example, my Pitman arms have all been replaced along with a bearing and one wheel hub already. And finally, the engine itself just isn't built for high horsepower modifications. A big problem with high-performance mods on the LB7 is bent connecting rods. While this may not be a catastrophic failure, replacing these will mean an engine-out situation. The number 2 most common issue on the LB7 Duramax is fuel filter housing O-ring leaks. Over time, the O-rings on your LB7 break down and begin to leak. While this may not be a major issue, a fuel leak can be very dangerous, and it should be fixed immediately, especially on a diesel, because a leak can cause air to get in to the fuel system and the fuel lines, and that is not a good thing on a diesel engine. If you are noting performance issues, new engine malfunction codes, having a hard time starting the engine or accelerating, it's probably time to check the fuel filter housing for leaks on your LB7. And the third most common issue is overheating. While the LB7 is better than the LLY in terms of overheating, it is still prone to it. Whereas on the LLY, it's a guaranteed failure. This is due to the fact the radiator just isn't big enough for this truck, as well as it has a talent for collecting gunk from the system and plugging itself off. Not to help the matter, these trucks can also have fan clutch problems. Overall, the cooling system just lacks capacity, which can lead to overheating under heavy load, which in turn leads to other major issues if not caught quickly and addressed. The best way to prevent this is by replacing the radiator with a larger one, or one with more cooling capacity. And the fourth most common failure point on this truck are head gaskets. Again, while guaranteed on the LLY, the LB7 is still prone to premature head gasket failure. Unlike Ford's flop of a 6.0 and 6.4, the head gaskets on these trucks, if they are going to fail, will still at least get you 100,000 miles. If the head gaskets do fail on these trucks, it'll most likely be while towing a heavy load because something in the cooling system has failed and the truck is overheating, or because of performance modifications. The fifth most common issue on these trucks are water pump issues. While this is not unique to the LB7, but seems to be a Duramax trend across every generation, oddly enough for different reasons. The LB7 water pump's failure point is due to the side seal leaking coolant, and if not addressed, will cause overheating. Luckily, the water pump replacement on my Duramax was done by its previous owner. And finally, number 6. The most common issue on the LB7 Duramax, and that is guaranteed injector failure. This is the big one. This is the issue that keeps most people from ever owning or ever wanting to own an LB7 Duramax Diesel. This issue is so big and guaranteed to happen multiple times over the lifetime of the vehicle that it has actually lowered the value of the LB7 Duramax Diesel specifically. Yes, General Motors issued an updated injector model with a 200,000 mile or 7-year warranty, whichever comes first. However, if you're buying an LB7, be very careful to ensure that this truck has had the issue addressed, especially if the truck has low miles. That's right. If you're buying an LB7 diesel, Duramax diesel, and it has low miles, it's not a good thing. Be very suspicious and very, very careful that the injectors have been replaced in that truck before you buy it. To put this in perspective, my Duramax diesel now has 177,000 miles. At the time, 165,000 miles, and it has had its fuel injectors replaced twice. Now on its third set of injectors, I really need to do a separate video, later on. Hit that big red button below so that you're tuned in so that I can explain specifically and exactly everything that happens and that is involved in this injector failure and what has to go into it to get them replaced. With that said, we're going to briefly cover it in this video. Not only is the fuel injector body prone to cracking, but the ball seat inside the injector itself will fail over time, causing an improper seal. In short, both of these issues lead to fuel leaking into the cylinder and ultimately the crankcase if not addressed quickly. Fuel injector failure symptoms include engine misfires, slow acceleration, slow performance, rough idle with excessive or constant smoke, hard starts, fuel in the oil, and even malfunction codes. Even with GM's updated injectors installed, injector failure is still a big possibility. It's just a lot farther down the road. This is due to the way the fuel system is set up on these trucks, which again we'll do a later video on. Pretty much this engine is direct injection, which means the injectors inject the fuel directly into the cylinder and work on a very, very high pressure rail around 23,000 psi. This of course puts the injectors and the injection pump under a lot of stress. It's not uncommon for GM's new injectors to last only around 100 to 150,000 miles. Because of it being a direct injection setup, replacing the injectors is something that should only be done by a professionally trained mechanic, as it is a major undertaking. Because of all the parts which are needed to come off the top half of the engine, the repair requires 16 hours of labor and a ton of new parts, most of which are gaskets. This has been done twice on my truck, and I can attest that it is very expensive, coming in at around $4,000. While there is no guaranteed way of preventing this failure, some suggest installing a lift pump or kind of an electronic fuel pump with additional fuel filters. This is to aid the injection pump. Even if you're running your truck stock, adding a lift pump will take the strain off of the injection pump that has to run the fuel system entirely by itself. While supposedly prolonging the life of your fuel injectors, this lift pump would also increase fuel economy, and because it adds a second set of fuel filters and a water separator, is, you know, just really good on your fuel system overall. And that's it for this video. I hope you guys liked it, enjoyed it. If you did, if it helped you make a purchase decision or just understand your truck better in general, go ahead and smash that like button. If I left something off the list, if there's something to add, or if you want to, you know, just back up and support any of these 6 common issues, go ahead and drop a comment below. Let me know what's going on with your truck or what has happened in your experience with one of these LB7 diesels. Also, smash that big red button below because you're not going to want to miss the content I have coming out on this truck or on any of my other vehicles. Stay tuned because we're going to be talking soon about why you would buy a diesel pickup over a gas pickup that would be much cheaper and seemingly more reliable. Also, stay tuned for 5 things that I love and 5 things that I hate about my Duramax diesel. With all of this said, get out, enjoy your automotive ownership, and I will catch you in the next video.